This is John Henry Westen for LifeSiteNews. The impact of the FBI raid on the Houck family can't be overestimated. As you know, LifeSiteNews broke the story on Friday, and on Saturday morning we were contacted by Kathy Barnette, the woman who rocked the Republican establishment in Pennsylvania with her stunning campaign for the U.S. Senate. Kathy almost pulled off one of the biggest political upsets in recent history with her uncompromising pro-life, pro-family, pro-freedom message. At the end, of course, she was sabotaged by the mainstream media with fake news about her background. But Kathy's trust in LifeSiteNews has never wavered. And that's why she reached out to us to talk about what happened to the Houck family and why we must seize the moment before it's too late. LifeSite's Jim Hale is with Kathy just outside Philadelphia. Jim, over to you.
Well, thank you, John Henry. I have come to Abington, Pennsylvania, and Kathy has been so gracious to take the time to meet with us. Kathy, I know you've been doing interviews all week. Thank you so much for being back with us here on LifeSiteNews. Kathy, last time we saw you was back, I think it was January, at one of those incredible campaign stops that you had with Doug Mastriano. Before we talk about the FBI raid that has just shocked us all, can you just tell us how you're doing since you launched that exhilarating senatorial campaign bid?
Yeah, well, what have I been doing since the primary? No one's counting, but it's been, 190 days, 47 minutes, and counting. I've fallen back into my family. Just imagine we were out there on the road for over 13 months. We were going more than 1,500 miles a week towards the end, out there with the people. That was my audience. I wanted to spend time with them. After that, we put it all out there. And as I sit back today and I look over the course of those 13 months, I have no regrets. Yeah. We did exactly what we knew to do. If I didn't do something, it was because I didn't know to do it. And so we put it all out there. I'm so very grateful for all of those who came and voted for us. In spite of all the lies that came out in those last 5 days, there were about almost a third, a little bit over 25% of those who came out and voted remained true and remained steadfast to what we were doing. So very grateful for them. What I'm doing now is really, I spent the last couple of months just spending time with my family and getting acclimated back into the normal life. And now I'm looking for those opportunities that will allow me to continue to push for our values, whether we're talking about fighting against this wokeness that we see in our culture that is now taking over corporate America with ESG, environmental social governance mandates and ordinances, or whether it is doing what we're going to talk about today, looking at what the FBI, the Biden administration, weaponizing the FBI to now attack American citizens, right? Whether we're talking about saving the lives of some of the most innocent Americans among us. I'm looking for those opportunities that will allow me to continue to push those particular values.
Well, Kathy, I know you've taken a much deserved risk, but you had to speak out about this. How egregious was this act? With you had 20 SWAT team members showing up at a man's home with his children there, and terrorizing his family.
Yeah. And this is something that I've been talking about for some time now. I used to say to people, how far in the sand do you think you're going to need to stick your head in order for the left to just ignore you, right? And I would say to people, you can't stick your head far enough into the sand and think that what is happening as we were watching our nation move more and more to the left, you're not going to be able to stick your head in the sand and pretend this isn't happening. This is happening. And so what happened to the Houck family, where he woke up early Friday morning to, roughly 20 law enforcement agencies, a mixture between the FBI and the state police, coming to his home, guns drawn, pointed at him. The wife said pointed at her and pointed at random places in the home. They have 7 very young children. And this is what he woke up to what they are alleging that he did over a year ago. That was an incident that was brought before the lower courts, that was thrown out by the lower courts. And now a year later, he has the FBI and a mixture of other law enforcement officers coming to his home. This is you and me, America, right? So this is not just the FBI being weaponized against political dissidents or those that they don't agree with from in the political sphere, like Donald Trump or Mike Lindell or General Flynn or some of those. This is now coming to you and I, right? And again, like I said earlier, I'm looking for those opportunities that allows me to use the platform that I've been given to speak out and push against wrong, against evil. And this is exactly what this is. The FBI showing up in this gentleman's home.
Well, Kathy, this is the Justice Department of the United States, the Attorney General of the United States. This is how they have decided to wage war against their opponents, using military type tactics. And what does this say about where our country is right now?
Yeah, it's very scary, right? These are the kinds of incidents we read about taking place in China or taking place in Iran or taking place in Venezuela, but never, or in Cuba, but never in our wildest imagination did Americans believe that these are the kind of cases we will be waking up to, where you're in a drive-through at Hardee's, I don't know where Mike Lindell was, and the FBI just descend upon you and take your phone, right? Or if you're in your home, in the privacy of your home, that the FBI would just walk into your home and just be able to take whatever they want, right? That's what happened to President Trump at Mar-a-Lago. But it's not just them. Now, again, they're pointing those same tactics, the weaponization of the federal government against individual citizens. Mr. Houck, he is, from my understanding, he runs a homeschooling program, a classical conversation homeschooling program. He's a co-founder of a ministry called King's Men, where he disciple young men, him and his son, for many years now. Drive about 2 hours every Wednesday to go stand outside of a Planned Parenthood and peacefully pray for those who are going in and to hopefully offer them an alternative to ending the life of their young child. That's you. That's me, right? Of just everyday Americans who don't have our head in the sand, but looking around to say, these are the few talents and gifts that I have. How can I use them in the service of my country and fellow citizens? This is us, right? And so, again, it's very unnerving. And let's talk about the FBI just for a moment now, because right now we have Senator Chuck Grassley and Congressman Jim Jordan have been approached by dozens, right, of FBI whistleblowers coming out specifically talking about how the FBI under the DOJ of Mr. Garland and President Biden, that administration, is weaponizing the FBI. So these are 2 different elected officials, one a senator, Chuck Grassley, then you have Jim Jordan. And each of them have about 12, a little bit over 12 FBI agents who have now presented themselves as whistleblowers, talking about 2 different issues, right? That is the weaponization of our federal government against the people. And how can the average citizen stand up to that? We don't have a Donald Trump or a General Flynn or a Mike Lindell's platform. So how do we do that? Every single American should be up in arms right now about what is happening. Have you ever made a donation to a political candidate that the left may not agree with? Have you ever sent money to a ministry, to an underground church ministry in China or Iran, right? So as you begin to see with the federal government now hiring 87,000 IRS agents, where now we have the Biden administration coming out talking about doing research on a centralized banking digital currency that will take the place of the US dollar. And now they can actually track where you're sending your money. This is where we are heading. These are the things that take place in totalitarian communist regimes. And never did we ever think this would happen here, right? In the past, people may have called us conspiracy theorists. But now it's taking less than 3 months for a theory to become a reality for a lot of people.
Yeah. Kathy, and where is Joe Biden when 5 full-term aborted babies are found in dumpsters, in Washington, D.C.? Where is Joe Biden when, in Merrick Garland, when pregnancy centers, who are reaching out to mothers, trying to help mothers who want to have their babies, these places are being attacked. They don't seem to care about that.
Yeah, and that's a reality. I mean, think about it. I mean, how do we determine life? At a heartbeat, right? And these are some of the most innocent people in our civilization. And if we are not willing to do our part to bridge the gap, to stand in the middle, to be a voice to the voiceless, to be able to help those who can't help themselves, who are we as a country? When it comes down to my body, my choice, and this is an inconvenience to me, and that should be justification enough for me to murder another human being, how long do you think that kind of mentality will run past the baby in the womb to a senior citizen who some may think have outlived their usefulness, right? Or to the individual as, what is her name? Oh my God, I was talking about her with my children last night, the founder of Planned Parenthood.
Sanger.
Yes, Margaret Sanger, right? Of creating a system that rid us of the undesirable.
This was eugenics. That's it. I mean, there's no dispute about that. Margaret Sanger was a eugenicist.
Exactly, right? She wanted to get rid. I literally have her book on my nightstand. I am rereading it again. I was talking about her to my 16 and 13-year-old child who brought the conversation up to me. But this is a woman, I mean, she said the quiet parts out loud. She wanted to create a system that would allow the federal government to cleanly dispose of the undesirables in the American population. Undesirables, she went on to define as blacks, as poor, and as disabled, right?
Yeah, let's get it out there. Planned Parenthood is unbelievably racist, Kathy.
Absolutely. Like so much of the left when they say Black Lives Matter under that banner, right? But what we see that across school systems, whether it is in the Planned Parenthoods that are predominantly situated in Black communities and poor communities, getting rid of whole populations. Every segment of our population is growing, except when you look at the Black community. Right? That is anathema. One of the most unsafe places for a Black child to be is not at a park and you leave them alone and you're afraid of stranger danger. The most unsafe place for a Black child to be in America is in a Black mother's womb. Wow. And that should never be the case, right? Wow. When I found out I was pregnant, I mean, I stopped drinking coffee. I stopped drinking sodas. I was very careful about where I went, what I did, because I wanted to protect this innocent life that was growing inside of me. And again, what does it say about our country when the most innocent among us are now left to be decided if it is convenient enough for me to have?
And Mr. Houck has devoted his life to protecting these children, and the government of the United States of America has defined him as a criminal and has terrorized his entire family. Kathy, I really think that this is a moment that we're in right now that is so important. That's why we had to come up here and talk to you. That's why thank you so much, by the way, for getting in touch with us. And please keep speaking out about this, because we're truly in a moment now. Do you believe that?
Yes. Listen, what are you waiting on? I mean, what more does this administration and those on the left have to do before the rest of America, to include Democrats, independents, and Republicans, if you want to categorize people in that way? What more does this ideology of the left have to do in order for us to recognize that these people are not playing with us? When they say fundamentally change this country, they mean it. They weren't playing. It's not hyperbole. And they have literally, if you look at one institution after another, they have gone in, they have put their roots down, and they are doing that. When you have a society that now says that you can walk into a CVS or a Wawa, and as long as you steal things that are $900 or less, you will not be penalized. They're manufacturing chaos, right? And they're manufacturing confusion, right? They're manufacturing dependency, right? Where a little child won't know if he's a boy or a girl, but he has to wait for someone else. He has to depend upon someone else, the experts, to tell him if he is a man or a woman, if this is a human life or not a human life, if he is ready, if she is ready to have a child or not ready to have a child, right? This is very intentional. This is very concerted. So when you have, going back to Mr. Houck, when you have a government, a system that is now saying $900 worth of theft of someone else's property is okay, but an incident that was thrown out of court over a year ago is not. It's something that the FBI now needs to get involved in. That's a problem.
That's right. Local authorities looked at this and said this was not a crime. This man was defending his 12-year-old son who was being screamed at by an escort. I've seen anybody who's been sidewalk counseling knows what these escorts are all about. They're out there attempting, they're trying to incite violence.
In some cases, I have gone down to 777 Apple Tree, stood outside peacefully praying and just watching. And if I saw a girl who was older than 20, I can't tell you. I mean, they looked really young who were walking in there. If I saw a female who was not black, I would have been really surprised. They were all generally very young and all black women. And I've stood on the sidewalk, peacefully prayed, and I have seen some of those who stand on the outside as escorts be very provocative, right? Trying to provoke, calling names while I'm standing there simply praying silently on the sidewalk for these women and for their lives, and that opportunities will present themselves for them to escape what it is that they're about to do. So we know that kind of situation does occur.
Kathy, what you're describing, and I think we all know it now, is that this is an attack on Christianity as well.
Yeah, and on our values, right? Yep. It's on our values that we believe, and not just our values, but also the Constitution, right? We hold these truths to be self-evident, right? That we have all been endowed by our Creator with some inalienable rights, right? Life, the first of all of them. Because before I can be free and be able to live life according to how I want to live life, right? Opportunities, I have to have life, right? And now we're not just attacking our values, but we're attacking the Constitution. And our nation does not exist apart from the U.S. Constitution. That is the document that separates us from China. And now when you have the FBI and the Biden administration, the DOJ, the CIA, the NIS can just make it up as they want to pick and choose which of these cases they want to involve themselves in, and to direct the full weight and power of the federal government on individuals now. We're in uncharted territory for a lot of Americans, and this is very unnerving.
You have so much to say. Thank you for the way you say it. All of our LifeSite viewers know that you were the real conservative candidate. You were the real MAGA candidate in Pennsylvania. It was awful the way that all this fake news came out about you in the very end and tried to discredit you. But I want you to know that our viewers were praying for you. And everybody, I think, knows the truth. You should be running right now. You would be winning in the state of Pennsylvania right now if you were the Senate candidate. We need more people like you. So I have to ask you, Kathy, you're a young woman. Are you going to run again?
I don't know. I don't know. The jury is still out on that. I have such a passion for finding out what is true and pointing other people to down that particular path. That is my passion. That is who I am. And again, I am weighing options on which avenue I will take, whether in the private sector or back in the world of politics, or maybe in television, LifeSite, hint, hint. But who knows what it is. But what it will be, by the grace of God, my desire is to continue to push our values. We have so many good people. I met so many good people, just amazing people on the campaign trail, and I think about them often. And I see when I think of a county, I see faces. I'm remembering their stories, and so as you're praying for me, I'm praying for you. I'm praying for our nation, because I think we are at a point where only God can help this nation. So many things are being attacked. At the very foundation of who we are, whether we're talking about the weaponization of the FBI, 87,000 new IRS agents who may or may not be armed, by the way, right?
We know that. That's no joke.
It is happening, right? And we have some options. We can either pretend this isn't happening and go to our vacation spot and try to live out the remaining few days, or we can look around and become very prayerful about, what's next. And that's not just something for me. I am you was my motto when I was on that campaign trail. I am a nobody in the grand scheme of things. Especially if you look at people like Sean Hannity, who was telling people I'm a nobody relative to some of the others who are running, right? Yeah. I have never exaggerated one aspect of who I am. I'm a little black girl who grew up on a pig farm in southern Alabama. I grew up in a home with no insulation, no running water, an outhouse in the back and a well on the side. But I've learned enough with my shared experiences in life that this is the greatest country that has ever existed. I met so many people over the course of my life, and especially during this campaign, people, immigrants who have come to America seeking that shining light on a hill to create a different lifestyle, a different pattern, a different direction for them and their children. And America has provided that, not just for the immigrant who is coming to this country looking for a new start in life, but for me, for someone who grew up underneath a rock. And I want to preserve that and hand that America full of opportunities over to my children, right? And over to my children's children. And I want that not just for my family, but for all of the families in America. That is what I was running on. And it wasn't just because some consultant did a survey and told me this is what I should say, but this is who I am. And so that aspect of me still exists.
Kathy, that's why we love you so much. That's why, your video went viral when we came out to meet with you on the campaign trail. You set off a bomb in the Republican Party establishment because you are a truth teller, because of your unabashed love for this country, because you are unapologetically Christian. Yes. And that resonates with people, the authenticity. So we need you, Kathy. Kathy, don't go away. I just want to, you talked about media. If you want to come work for LifeSite, I'm sure we would love to have you. You could probably start your own network. But why is alternative media important?
Oh, because where else are you going to get true news? Fake news, legacy media right now. And it's so unfortunate, right? Like we used to kind of, tongue in cheek say, Fox News is the only source of, the only outlet that speaks on conservative issues.
Wrong.
Very much so, right? think about, again, just for a moment, flash back to those last 5 days of my campaign. It wasn't the left that was coming after me. It wasn't Democrats who were coming after me. It was my own.
The establishment and yes, the shameful people on Fox News.
Sean Hannity. I mean, what a jerk. But, but he got his marching orders for someone, right? And like a good little boy, he went out and carried out those marching orders. And so that is something we should never forget. I am not going to pretend that didn't happen because we must speak truth to the evils, to what is wrong. And that was just downright evil, right? But now that's bigger than just me, because the next conservative candidate who should come, who actually embody our values as quote unquote Republican Party, that person will be next, right? And then they will beat that person down, drag that person off, make that person lose so that they can elevate one of their own. And then we will be told, just hold your nose and vote for the lesser of two evils, right? What has the lesser of two evils gotten us as a country, right? Our values as conservatives, I was saying to someone the other day, Republican establishments are treating conservatives the exact same way Democrats treat black people, right? We often call it, I often call it the Democrat plantation where black people reside, right? 92 to 95% of black people vote historically Democrat. And yet when you look at those particular areas where black people primarily live, I mean, poor schools, low home ownership, ducking and dodging bullets. The crime rate is astronomical. And now the National School Report just came out, putting a spotlight on what has happened across our nation during the last couple of years of COVID, when schools were shut down and businesses were shut down, and our children have suffered. But those who have suffered the most are black children, right? And it was primarily Democrat governors and Democrats themselves and Democrat, leaning unions who wanted to keep the schools closed. So they say they love black people, and yet they do the very things that harm black people. Now, take that analogy and move it over here to Republican establishment and conservatives, right? Because Republican establishments are now beginning to treat conservatives the exact same way Democrats treat black people. They do not represent our values. We now have 87,000 new IRS agents. The Green New Deal has been passed. Almost $400 billion has been put to the side for that. We now have red flag laws. I mean, we now have roughly 5 million illegals who have crossed our borders, and there is no end to that. No one is doing anything. Fentanyl is flooding our streets.
And Lindsey Graham thinks that a 15-week ban is a good idea.
And now you have Lindsey Graham coming out introducing a 15-week ban. But on top of that, we have others, just espousing some really crazy things. So we are told to hold our nose as conservatives, vote for the lesser of two evils. But what has that gotten us? All of our values, the things we say, the principles we say we believe in, the principles we say are going to make our nation stronger and safer so that we can pass it on to the next generation. What has these particular Republican establishments have done to secure those values? And so we have to begin, typically Republicans don't want to talk about these issues. We want to just pretend they never happened. But at some point as a nation, we must begin to put a spotlight on these things, and especially a spotlight on Republicans, all of it, the good, the bad, the ugly. And let's have a conversation about it so that we can begin to make, because we're losing our nation.
We are. We truly are. And it's shameful for these Republicans who pay lip service when they're trying to get elected, and then they turn around and they just become fat cats in Washington who, like you said, they just look down on us. They sneer at us. They sneer at evangelical Christians. They sneer at traditional Catholics. They all they do is they want our vote.
They have great disdain for us.
Kathy Barnette, thank you so much for being with us today. We need your voice, and thank you for speaking out again. John Henry, I tell you what, we need this lady, and hopefully we have not seen the end of Kathy Barnette. So God bless you, sister.
Thank you so much. Blessings.
Isn't that awesome? Jim, you are absolutely right. Kathy's voice is desperately needed right now, more than ever. And she knows better than most why alternative media, like LifeSite News, is essential if we're going to win this battle that we are in for life, family, and culture. I'm John Henry Westen for LifeSite News, and may God bless you.